You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share facts.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Tag goes in, tag goes out. Never miscommunication. It's over 9,000!
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll! Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing memory. Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man.
Hey, hello everybody out there, and welcome to Nerd to Know Media, Phoenix 92.5 FM. And yes, it is that once familiar voice, but not much recently. It is Bryn, and I am joined this week by
Cian O'Callaghan here. Glad to be here as always. And for long-time fans who may be setting up the Wikipedia about us, you will know that when it's just me and Bryn,
it gets nuts.
It will be run by two tired dads who are recording late at night, and we'll probably end up talking about DVD commentaries of films you've never heard of. Yeah. But we will get into the headlines and stuff. But
or late stage capitalism. It could go in any direction, you know.
Really, well, that's kind of behind the Spotify paywall, but we'll float it.
It is. Now we have to start out with an apology. Neither of us have seen Morbius. It was promised there would be a review. Neither of us have seen it, so there isn't going to be a review. Instead, we're going to talk about things we actually enjoy.
The problem is, as we found out at an hour's notice, Dara has friends, and he has nice friends who take him out to concerts and things. And we were not prepped for this eventuality. So instead, we're going to talk about things that aren't Morbius, that bring joy to our souls. If that's okay with the listeners at home. We fully understand if this is our least listened to episode after that hype.
Yeah. Letters to the same address.
But since we brought it up anyway, do you have any familiarity with like Morbius in the comics or anything like that, Brett?
I mean, not much beyond what was in the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s. And was it Spider-Man 3, the video game, where he was a boss?
Yes, him and Screech were in it. Oddly enough, I love Spider-Man 3 as a film, even though most people hate it. But the game of Spider-Man 3 had a much better plot.
I mean, that wouldn't be hard.
No, but seriously, like, I mean, not to go on like a huge tangent, but like they brought in like Shriek and Morbius and Lizard, and integrated Sandman and Venom into the story and had his like is going to the dark side be much more gradual,
these are all things you can do over the course of a video game.
But most video games, like having played the Phantom Menace PC game hundreds of times, most video games of films are just take the plot and pad it out with people getting kidnapped every 10 minutes or so, or something like that, you know.
Yeah, God, I think that Phantom Menace game, I will have flashbacks to the escort missions in it for the rest of my life. It's just that was the game that made me go, I actually hate escort missions.
Oh my goodness. And this isn't the headline. I promise we'll talk about Sonic 2.
We promise we'll get there.
Yeah, because the game, it was fascinating. It's like, I actually really enjoyed it as a kid, but it's like...
The escort missions are just pain.
Yeah, it's not all the voice actors. It's lots of jumping over platforms.
Yeah.
At least 4 levels of escorting Padme around the place.
In different locations.
If you watch the film, you know it isn't actually her.
Yeah.
which is just a bit of salt in the wound.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not as fun as you would have wanted a Star Wars game to be.
Yeah.
But hey, look, it is what it is. I mean,
It is indeed. And to be fair, it did have a weird kind of proto Mass Effect mechanic where you had conversation options. And if you were savvy enough with it, you could get Obi-Wan Kenobi to slag some random stranger off in public. Just for like the 15th replay, you can kind of get a bit mischievous with it. It doesn't change the plot.
No.
But like, there was kind of inventive mechanics in it, hidden in the brokenness of it.
Yeah, but I think that's like also like, that was something dialogue options were something LucasArts were already famous for at that point, because like even going back, you have to remember it's the same developers who did Monkey Island. Like,
that's a good point.
But
actually, that's as good a segue as any, because speaking of movie adaptations of video games and vice versa, especially considering broken ones from the 90s. Sonic 2. I saw it this weekend. I have been very excited to see it. I brought my daughter along to it. It was her first ever trip to the cinema.
She's going through a real Sonic phase right now, isn't she?
She is indeed. Probably my fault. Because I showed her how to play, I think it was called Sonic Forces on the Switch. And that was the gateway into watching the Sonic Booms and Sonic X's on Netflix, and the original Jim Carrey films up there too. So yes, are you at all familiar with Sonic 1, anything like that? Is there are there Sonic merchandise up in your room? Like, what's your take on this, Bryn?
So I've played I want to say I've played every Sonic game. That isn't true. I played every Sonic game on the Mega Drive and Game Gear. And then I played Sonic Adventure 1. I still haven't gotten around to playing Sonic Adventure 2. And I kind of fell off after that. I have played a bit of Sonic Generations and Sonic Mania on the Switch.
Oh, yes, that kind of retro.
But like I read the Sonic comics growing up. I watched there was like 3 shows made in the 90s. There was like Sonic the Hedgehog, one called Sonic Sat AM, which is bloody excellent. It has Jim Cummings playing Dr. Robotnik, and it is...
Yes, I remember this. There was kind of a goofy kind of Looney Tunes type one, and there was a dark, mysterious... heavy themes one.
And the dark heavy themes one is fantastic. It's so very good. But again, having Jim Cummings playing Dr. Robotnik is always going to be a good time. Even if it sounds like he's having a bit too much fun playing the character.
Well, that's what you want. I mean, that's why you get Jim Carrey in the films. You want a Robotnik who can like chew the scenery and eat out of your TV.
Yeah, like there's like a one line he had that even in my circle of friends just become a meme. Going, oh, that's good. That's very good indeed.
Okay, so you're definitely in the diehard of Sonicdom.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be so diehard that I'll follow people just because they mentioned something positive about Sonic, but I know my way around the fandom.
No, but compared to me, my first one was the Sonic Heroes and Shadow on the PlayStation 2, and then I just did 1 or 2 DS and PSP games, and that's it up until the present. Like properly, like you'd know who all the characters are to see, and kind of different eras and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, more or less.
Excellent. Well, I will first off say that I absolutely loved Sonic 2. I'm ashamed to say I enjoyed it slightly more than the Batman, which I know is like a sin to admit.
I'm pretty sure they're catering to 2 different audiences. So, like, I mean...
Oh, even so, though, like, it's kind of... Because, it's... The first Sonic was like a runaway hit that no one really expected, especially considering the controversy of the trailer with his teeth.
But it's also like it was the 6th highest film globally in 2020.
Now, granted, it was 2020.
Yeah, but still,
that's not bad.
Not bad, all things considered. But like, I mean, thank God they reverted the character design, because it would have been such a shame to have an otherwise good movie torn down by a bad character design. Um,
Yeah, I mean, like, there's this kind of like, I didn't mind the design when I saw it the first time, but I will admit, like,
oh,
having it look a bit more traditional just
yeah,
helps, you know.
it does, but there's just so many like uncanny valley things thrown into it. The way his teeth looked, especially, were just really unnerving. Like, like I know that's been like the point people came back to over and over again, was like,
D is for his tooth-filled mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the first one, I was pleasantly surprised by how enjoyable I found it. Like, I mean, look, it's, if you're a purist for Sonic the Hedgehog, it's like, it's not terribly lore accurate, but at the same time, when you see the trailer for it, it's set on Earth. It's like, at that point you should go like, right, this is not going to be lore accurate.
Yeah, I mean, because you kind of have to navigate around the fact that Sonic is kind of a generational thing, and it's a lot more complicated than your Mario type games, where those are dead simple.
Yeah,
and you don't want to kind of overcomplicate a 90-minute kids film. I think they were right to keep it dead simple for that first one.
But like, I mean, it's not. Look, I mean, the fact of the matter is that not every kids property can be the Ninja Turtles, where it's actually surprisingly versatile. Like, I mean, even comparing Sonic to the Ninja Turtles, I think is a really good example, because there is a good bit of like connective tissue between the two of them in terms of like the ways they were made to be marketable. But like, I mean, the Ninja Turtles, like, by design, all you need to do is go, they got hit by ooze, they're in New York City, and they eat pizza. And even being pizza wasn't even a core staple until they had their first animated series. So like, but that's kind of all you need. As long as you're hitting those points, you can kind of do whatever with them, because it's a really simple formula. Whereas like with Sonic, I mean, if you're going to do something really accurate, like there's a ton of different areas in which you could lose an audience, because like like Sonic is different things to different people, and some people just want to see a blue hedgehog go fast, and that's it. And then others like, no, but I need Mobius, and I need the Freedom Fighters, and I need the Chaotix crew, and
even getting that lore out of the way, Sonic is he's quite Bart Simpson-y. He's quite anarchic presence, which may not translate to a kids film very well. It could be like, very cringy or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're with a character like that, you're either going to hit, something close to being Bart Simpson, or you could have Mike Myers' version of the Cat in the Hat. And but there's a real risk of going in either. There's a real risk of being Mike Myers' Cat in the Hat, like.
Oh, completely. I mean, sure. Like, Jim Carrey is no stranger to Dr. Seuss. Like,
Yeah.
Like, that performance, I love him, but that performance could have unbalanced the film. But it all came together.
Well,
and
I think that, like, with how, like, I mean, he's playing a character that, like, he's playing like he's playing like a version of Robotnik where he's given enough scope to do whatever with that character. And yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount. Like, I mean, look, they got a Jim Carrey performance out of him. It's Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik rather than being Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik.
Yeah, but getting a Jim Carrey performance out of Jim Carrey isn't always possible at the best of times.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, like, it's at this stage in his career, he doesn't really, he doesn't really need to be putting in. You're not really looking at him going, oh, I wonder if he's going to put in a performance. I mean, he gives a show for the character.
Oh, yeah. Look,
but like,
he doesn't. I've never seen him like half try it in a film.
No. No, like Jim's issues have always been more about like, did he really need to go that far?
Right.
You know, that's always been like the qualm with him as an actor. But
look, he's acting opposite a hedgehog. Go
yeah,
big.
yeah, absolutely. You know, and look, like it's again, he's playing a character where he has the scope to go and do whatever, and I think it's. You know, I think one of the things that's like a big strength for him is that when he needs to be intimidating in the first film, anyway, I haven't seen the second yet, but in the first film, when he needed to be intimidating, he was.
Yeah.
And for a kids' film, that's all you kind of need. And I'm not saying kids' film to be like, reductive. I'm more just going like it's a film that like it should appeal to people of all ages. And I think he contributes to that. You know, like what's wrong with that? Like, I mean, giving out about Jim Carrey in Sonic is like giving out about Nicole Kidman in Paddington. It's like, what do you want? Like,
oh, we could talk all day about Paddington.
No,
but
again,
I want to talk specifically about Sonic 2 though, because I'm assuming you haven't seen it yet.
No, but I've can piece together what the plot is from the trailer, but.
You might be surprised, but yeah, it's basically for the people who wanted more Sonic lore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get a bit more of that in this one. Obviously, from the posters, we know kind of Tails and Knuckles are in it. There's like I'm not sure how much to give away because I don't know what's in the trailer and what isn't.
Sure,
but by and large, this kind of feels like. It almost feels like a second first film, if you know what I mean. Like if they just put their foot in and threw in Tails and Knuckles and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's long stretches of it. The basic premise, without getting into too many spoilers, is that the James Marsden and his wife, they've gone away for a sister's wedding and Sonic's minding the house by himself. And in the 2 days where Sonic just has to mind the house, you know, Eggman comes back, Knuckles is teamed up with Eggman, Tails pops up, and it's just all these, it's like 5 competing stories, and it should be messy, but it actually really, really works. There's like a long stretch of the film where it's just Sonic and Tails, like not interrupted. There's long stretches where it's just Eggman and Knuckles uninterrupted. There's long sections where it's just James Marsden and his wife's sister who hates him. And it's about a wedding that they have to save, and Sonic isn't even in it for 10 minutes, and it's just so funny. Like it's such a strange film, but it really, really works. It's got this lovely kind of mad energy and joy to it, and Idris Elba steals the film from everyone. Like, I mean, we were talking about Jim Carrey, and I know that there's like an Idris Elba performance, but like it's just something about the way he pitches his voice and Knuckles as a character works completely because they just play up the sort of what's the term? For unfrozen caveman lawyer aspect of it.
Yeah.
With him like trying to work out how coffee works and
that's
like,
cool.
you know, smashing holograms and that kind of stuff, or like not knowing how to work phones and all that. They just like they pair up this CG Knuckles with Jim Carrey. And it's perfect because Jim Carrey is like acting his heart out, and Idris Elba via Knuckles is just low energy funny, and it's just every scene with them is just electric, and I loved it to bits.
That's great. But like, if there's anything that every film ever made needs, it's more Idris Elba.
Yes, actually, we came home and watched the first season of Luther straight afterwards. Like, you know, I don't think he gets enough props for being great because, like, I don't know. It's kind of I'm not like I didn't grow up with Sonic, so I don't get excited when Tails and Knuckles are up. My kid did, but so I didn't get the appeal. But like now I get it. Like these 3 characters together are just incredibly funny. There's kind of like I suppose a Thor-like quality to the way they pitch Knuckles, where he's just so matter of fact that it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, you know, kind of they're running around and he'll just be like, good, you go distract them and die, and I will throw the punch. and we will win. Like, you know, and there's like no hint of like irony about him. He's just so blunt that I was hugely impressed with this film. My only kind of but curiosity, I suppose, is I wondered if they filmed it in lockdown or not, because you have the one kind of element the film doesn't quite have is Sonic and James Marsden's character are mostly split up, unfortunately, which is a shame because that was kind of the winning ingredient of the first film, their weird chemistry. But here it's Sonic and Tails, and like, you know, that's great. They have a dance off thing. That's all good. It's Knuckles and Eggman. So those two plot points, you could easily film social distancing. All of the human characters are on an island together in a wedding, all stood far apart. It's still hilarious, but I was kind of
definitely
trying to piece together the circumstances of how it came together.
That definitely sounds like it would have been a COVID shoot.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. Like, it's still hilarious. Like,
like Spider-Man No Way Home is shot in COVID as well. Like, and
I got the vibes of that as well, because even just the way characters are spaced out, like the CG Sandman and Lizard were stood between people, so you could have them like spread out across the room and you wouldn't know. Like, that kind of. It doesn't bother me. It's just I wonder if it's going to jump out as being weird to people in like 10 years' time when they
probably will
and stuff.
Probably will.
But do you have any kind of like, because like you know more about Sonic than me. So like, do you have any kind of predictions or questions or anything like that?
Yeah. So like my expectation going in was that they had taken inspiration from Sonic 3 on the Mega Drive,
right?
Where the plot was that Eggman was trying to get the Master Emerald, which Knuckles is guarding, and he had manipulated Knuckles into thinking that Sonic was going to steal it. So then Knuckles was like, "Well, the hell he is," and basically they clash, and eventually they're able to reconcile and then go after Eggman together. But that's kind of what I expected from them to do story-wise. Is that in any way similar to?
There is a Master Emerald in it, which is kind of the instigating thing. I'll mention that because I didn't know going in, but I suppose if Knuckles is in it, that kind of goes without saying. Yeah. So it is kind of a bit of a treasure hunt around the world between Sonic and Tails versus Eggman and Knuckles to go and find it and use it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's just fun as a premise, isn't it?
It is just fun. I'd be interested to see how this is received, because I haven't looked at any reviews yet. Because for people who like the Sonic 1, like me, I've seen that Jim Carrey Sonic film loads of times now. There's more of the stuff you liked already. The angry sister character is in it more. She gets a big subplot. The donut, the not Donut Lord, he's the main one. The doofy cop guy from the town who things go wrong, he gets more to do. Agent Stone gets more to do. So it's just everything is bigger. So I suppose if you like the first one, you'll like it in that regard. For diehard Sonic fans, like I know Katie on the show with us, she wasn't wild about the lack of Chaos Emeralds and stuff. There's more of that in this one. I suppose I'd be interested to see if it's okay for kids, because my kid's only going on 3.
Yeah.
But the long stretches where Sonic wasn't in it, she kind of tuned out. But at the same time, there's still like crazy explosions and that kind of stuff going on. So I'd be interested to see if this actually holds kids' attention, or if it will be more warmly received by like nostalgic Sonic fan adults, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think that's a tricky one, because I think it kind of depends on the age ranges you're talking about. Like, I mean, I think, I think for most kids under like, 7 years old, what holds their attention can be a real fleeting object, It's just really, like, because I remember like when I was like 5, I saw Jurassic Park in the cinema, and when dinosaurs weren't on screen, I wasn't paying attention. And that's kind of the barometer that I kind of hold for I hold for films is that like, when X isn't on screen, they're probably not going to pay attention.
I suppose that's fair. Yeah. And it is a very well balanced film, and it moves at a mad clip. So yeah, anyway, I suppose I would recommend Sonic 2 to like anyone who enjoyed the first one. It's a good, solid kids movie. Like the effects are a lot stronger than the first one. Like the Knuckles and Tails feel like they have a proper weight to them. The music's great, as seems to be standard with these. Like, So yeah, I would highly recommend it, even if you're not a Sonic fan. Because like I kind of wasn't mad into Sonic, but the first one kind of broke me into it. So I would recommend this very, very highly. And I suppose I'm gutted that we didn't get to hear about how Morbius did in its competing opening weekend. But yeah, I just had a lovely, lovely time. And it's nice to see just a wholesome kind of kids film come out that isn't a Disney thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's a nice kind of anarchic edge to Sonic, as I said, that's refreshing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where like, that's definitely something that like I think is sorely missed from kids' films, is that like, because like things have gone in the direction where like you get Disney films where it's either, where it's where like Disney's like big daring thing is that they don't have villains anymore. It's just that like it's the dynamics characters have between them is the villain, and if it's not that, then you're getting like a Universal and Illumination just doing basically the bare minimum for films, where like it's just if it's not the Minions, it's something equally uninspiring.
Yeah, I'm not in the like kind of down on Illuminations camp that I know a lot of people are. But I watch them and I kind of feel like, that's a proper C+ movie there. That's what kind of what they aimed for. You know what I mean?
But like, I mean, this is like, to be very clear here. Like, I mean, I'm not down on Illumination in the sense that like I think what they do is bad. I don't think it's bad, but I just don't think it's it's worth being positive over either. I think I think they make filler films, and they're well made filler films, and like there's technically nothing wrong with them. But like the way I would put it is that like there's always going to be a part of me, because I grew up on Labyrinth, and I grew up on Neverending Story. And at this stage in my life, I would absolutely pay any amount of money to see films like that go on screen again than get anything out of that Illumination has in the pipeline. I'd be much more interested.
We did see the trailer for like Minions 2. We're waiting for this one to start, and there's just kind of like a sense like it's young Gru, and like they're all competing to be the best supervillain, and just like the trailer just keeps going and going. And it's like the 7. I'm like, I don't want to hate on a kid's property, but like it's like if they ran Pixar, we'd have 9 films about those green aliens from Toy Story by now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, that's one of those things where it's like, like variety is the spice of life, and I would never say that there should never be Minions movies, because of course there should be Minions movies, but like, it's like, but give me a choice between them and something else. Like,
well, Sing 2 is coming out as well. Like,
but like, I mean, like, look, again, there's nothing wrong with Sing 1. There really wasn't, but. And I have nothing wrong with with those films existing. It's just that like, it's kind of like the criticism of Marvel, where it's like, but this seems to be these things seem to be just about the only things that exist now.
Yeah,
and it would be nice to have it'd be nice to have a couple of different flavors of things.
Yeah, okay, totally.
And like, I mean, that's where, like, I think especially in kids films, like, I mean, outside of, I really get the impression that, like, outside of whatever Disney and Pixar are trying to do, there just isn't a huge amount of effort to match what Disney are doing in that area.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's an issue of resources as well, but
yeah, I mean, there is. I think it's also just that, like, in previous animation generations, you had people that you could point to and go, well, they're trying something. Like in the 90s, you had Don Bluth, who did who did Fern Gully and the Land Before Time and American Tail and all those films. In the early 2000s, the guys over at DreamWorks, once they got past their hatred for Disney, started to make really good animated movies.
Let's be honest, that never really went anywhere. They just channeled it.
They didn't, yeah, it never really went anywhere, but they actually started making movies that weren't just, we hate Disney, can't you tell?
Yeah. Ants is a tough time to watch.
Oh man, Ants is so bad. It's I mean, outside of going, oh, there's famous actors in this, it's not really anything to really watch.
Yeah, it's. I remember that came out when I was 7, and I know we were on a tangent of a tangent by now.
Yeah,
but it's the first film that I watched where I kind of, in the back of my brain, went, I shouldn't be watching this. This isn't for me. Those crickets are using terms like Eurotrash. What's going on?
Yeah.
Like Woody Allen is talking to a dead soldier ant's severed head that's still talking.
Yeah.
I'll watch it because it's on, but I'm not liking this. Like, you know.
Oh yeah, Ants, not great.
Oh my god. But actually, it should be worth mentioning, like, in regards to Sonic, this could also be potentially Jim Carrey's last film because he's talking about retiring very soon. Now, he could just be floating it, but still.
I mean, look, at this stage in Jim Carrey's career, I mean, what else is there for him to really do?
That is basically, from what I've read of the interviews, like, he's like, I've done a lot, but now I want to, like, do paintings and have fun and relax. I'm 60.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and fair dues to him. Like, you see this in the shadow of, like, all these rumors around Bruce Willis, like, and his health and, like, doing movies where he's in it for 2 days and on the poster and stuff. It's like, just retire. Just
absolutely
enjoy. You're wealthy enough now. Like,
but, as well as that, like, I mean, like, Jim has really gotten into, like, he's really fallen into, like, a lot of, like, mindfulness stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if that has a lot to play with it. I don't know. I know that, like, he has kids and everything, and he may be, close to being a grandfather. He's certainly around the age group where that would happen. So who knows? Maybe he's just like, I want to just settle down and be there for my family now. And that's amazing if he's able to do it. There's not that many actors who get to do that, who just, like, get to go out on good terms, I mean,
don't just kind of, like, since you brought up Nicole Kidman earlier, like, I kind of got a bit of a fright when she turned up as, like, a supporting character in Aquaman, because to me, she's still kind of like, an A-list celebrity, like, and you kind of go, oh, well, I'm glad to see you, but is this the most that's available to you now? Like, what's kind of happening here?
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I mean, how much do we really know about Nicole Kidman?
That's true. That's true. But, like, there's this kind of, it's terrible, but, like, because it's a person's life. Yeah. But on some level, we're so used to kind of the Hollywood system that you kind of go, all right, they're going to be this big for 4 years, and then they're going to kind of maybe be consistent, and then they'll either vanish or just stick around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. But
now and again, you'll get, like, a Matthew McConaughey where he seems to burn out and comes back and is amazing. But, like, by and large, kind of, like, it's sort of, there is a lifespan to all things,
Yeah, well, I mean, there's only so long you can stay at the top for, and I mean, like, even using someone like Bruce Willis, like Bruce Willis got a good 10 years of legitimately being one of the biggest actors in the world, and then his career just slowly petered out from there, and like that's that's better. That's better than most actors will ever get. And you're going to 10 years. That's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like especially when you're talking about a career. And again, like he had a really long career, and like it's it sucks that he's retiring under the conditions that he is, but at the same time, like I mean, anyone else would retire under the same conditions as him.
That is a good point. Yeah. It's but that's why I'm kind of glad I wanted to bring Jim Carrey up, because like Sonic 2 is good. He brings his A game in it, like
Yeah, like I mean,
he's not in it a huge amount in the grand scheme of things, but he's like giving it socks every time. And you kind of want, if it is an actor's last film, you want it to be a nice one, like a really exciting one. You don't want it to be like an Orson Welles situation,
Orson Welles in Transformers.
Yeah, I haven't been brave enough to see it yet.
So I have I'm in a minority of having a lot of love for that Transformers movie.
Right.
The soundtrack, I will freely admit, is the absolute best part of the film. The soundtrack's amazing. It's so very, very good. The film, when I saw it as a child, was borderline traumatic because of a thing that happens in the first act. But like I mean, look, Leonard Nimoy is in it, which as your Star Trek fan, that's another reason for you to watch it.
Yes, that'll be a good segue in a minute. Oh, that's funny because Leonard Nimoy's in Transformers 3 as well, isn't he?
He is, yeah, he is, and like Eric Idle from Monty Python fame is in it. Like,
my goodness,
yeah, the cast is like amazing. The cast is really, really good. But like, I mean, yeah, like Orson Welles is in it famously in his last cinematic role where he plays a giant planet-eating robot.
When you put it like that, that's not a bad role to go out on, actually, is it?
It's not a bad role at all to go out on. Yeah, I think it's like 85 minutes long. There's certainly, like, look, put it this way, there's certainly worse Transformers movies you could watch.
That's a dark board. You could have a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, it's very easy to watch worse Transformers movies.
I've fallen into a weird kind of pattern with, I think, the 5th Transformers, the one that's in the King Arthur times, where if I'm flicking through the channels and I see Transformers 5 on, I've never watched it from start to finish, but I'll play a game where I will just find some random 10 minutes in the film. And this isn't fair to any film, I suppose, but especially this one. I love finding a random 10 minutes of a film, of this film in particular, Transformers 5 last night, and trying to figure out what's going on just from what's happening. And then I'll come back in an hour and, like, honest to God, none of the characters are the same. Like, I tried it once and there were like kids and a junkyard. And then when I came back, it was like Anthony Hopkins running around Trinity College. The second time I tried it, it was like I came in at like the King Arthur bit. And then when I came back an hour later, it was like Megatron's Suicide Squad. There's just so many weird plot elements in it. And that's before you get to the aspect ratio changing every 3 seconds, you know?
Yeah. Oh, those films. Ugh. Ugh. Horrible.
But actually, since we're on a kids film vibe, super quick 1 minute review. The Paw Patrol movie is actually good. Which was a shock to me. It like made me feel emotions and things, which the Netflix Paw Patrol episodes do not do.
Yeah.
I only bring this up because I know you're a parent too and must kind of
Yeah.
be on the same wavelength.
You know, I think I speak for every parent by saying, why did you have to bring them up? I was fine not having the theme song in my head.
And now everyone at home can hear it too.
Yeah, everyone who's a parent can hear too at home.
Right, I'll segue us out of that.
That's just so cruel. I was fine not thinking about Paw Patrol.
Well, we'll switch from one earworm of a theme to another. Have you seen the trailer for Picard Series 3? Which is 2 years, we're only halfway through Picard Series 2. But have you seen it? Because there's a lot of buzz about this.
I have not seen it, actually, no.
Okay, well, I don't know what your attachment to Star Trek is, but basically they dropped a trailer for Series 3, which is peculiar because, again, we're still halfway through Series 2. But the reason they did it was, as far as I can tell, the entire Next Generation cast is coming back for Picard Series 3. And this is a first for this new generation of Star Trek. They haven't gotten like an entire set of characters back yet. And it's obviously everyone's very excited about it. There's a lot of, I want to say, heated discussions around the state of Star Trek at the moment. But since we're kind of talking about nostalgia in regards to Sonic and all that kind of stuff, I suppose, what's your take on like bringing these, like, say, because Star Trek Next Generation in the 80s and 90s, what's your take on kind of bringing them back now in the new kind of glossy, dark, moody HD era and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really have like strong opinions on Star Trek, so it's hard to like weigh in on a topic. I have no dog, like I don't have a dog in the fight. So like, I mean, it's kind of hard to weigh in with any real committed opinion. Like, I mean, look, if you know, if they think it's going to make fans happy, then definitely do it. If they also think they're going to bring in new fans because of it, then great. I mean, but you know, I guess like the only real question about it is like, well, who's it actually for though?
That's a very good question. Yeah, because like I'm currently reviewing each Picard episode on Discovery, if we were allowed to watch it in Europe, for Geek Ireland. And like, it's when these new Star Treks came out, they sort of had a chip on their shoulder. Like they were trying to be more like Battlestar Galactica or The Expanse, which I know you're very passionate about.
Yep.
And they kind of seemed slightly embarrassed by Trek staples. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think like one of the things that like, you know, I think one of the things that like one of the staples of like Star Trek is like, especially going from like the original series and from the Next Generation, is that there's this overwhelming amount of optimism for the future. And that's something that I would imagine there's a big belief that can't translate in a modern context because, well, look at the news.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah.
And like, you know, so that because of that, then there's like this need to go. It's kind of like, you know, it's the same kind of thing as people saying, well, like, you know, you can't do Superman in the modern age because it's too optimistic. And they go like, well, we have to darken it up and we have to, you know, make it more grounded and this, that, and the other. And it's like, you know, I think a lot of that comes down to like, you're not seeing the wood from the trees.
Yeah.
If you're thinking that way, because
you're not kind of actually making the thing you're making. You're trying to make something that's marketable with the skin of something that's popular.
Yeah. It's the thing that like, you know, people have been raking the new Lord of the Rings show over the coals for as well.
Oh, I actually don't know anything about that. Have they released trailers and stuff?
They've had a teaser trailer for it, and it's like, even from the trailers going over, it's not at all lore accurate from the sounds of it. I mean, outside of like, you know, well, there's been a couple of tidbits in it that are just like not lore accurate, And it's like, with the specific things they've done, it's very like, okay, like what are you aiming for here?
Yeah.
And like there's also some like bits of very interesting things that come out. Like the show itself seems to be very suspect, because they're making a Lord of the Rings show set in the Second Age, which means their source material is a Silmarillion.
Right.
They don't actually have the rights to it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a bit like the Tolkien film situation, like about the Tolkien biopic. Are you up on this?
Yeah. So it's a very similar problem. It basically trying to make money off of Tolkien's name without paying for it.
Yeah.
And it's not it's not a great look. It's also that, like, one of the major quotes from Peter Jackson when he made the Lord of the Rings trilogy was that himself and Philip, himself and the other two writers, Philip and Fran, had said that they didn't want to introduce their politics into the storytelling process. They very much wanted it to be Tolkien's story. Apparently, the showrunners have said that they want to make their show, The Rings of Power, be a reflection to the modern world, which
okay.
I don't know the people who are running the show, but small spoiler for the source material, it's not based in Earth.
Yeah, and like because I remember like there was discourse around Lord of the Rings where if you try and put modern allegory into Lord of the Rings, it suddenly becomes incredibly problematic anyway, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's more. So look, there's, for everything in Middle Earth, there's really specific contexts around them all. So if you try to just shoehorn in modern allegory into it haphazardly, it sends certain things become so much worse, right?
Right.
So, like, one of the most common things is that people who haven't read the Silmarillion, and no shade, the Silmarillion is a history book for a place that doesn't exist.
Well, that's the whole Lord of the Rings series, though. Let's be fair, or whatever you call it, Middle Earth series.
Yeah, I would disagree. I mean, The Hobbit's very much a kid's book.
The Hobbit, I'll give you that. But certainly, I've said it on the show before. Like, Lord of the Rings is structured not around plot action.
No, it's not
around locations. Do you know what I mean? It kind of reads like a history book.
So, like, I would say Lord of the Rings is very much like a median point between the two.
Yes.
It's not quite a history book. It's not quite a story book. But it's very much a hybrid of the two. The Silmarillion's just a history book. So, but like, basically, like, the point I was going to make was that, like, you see it all the time. You see this come up quite often where people try to make this argument that, like, Tolkien thinks orcs are people from Africa, which is using the context of the books is a really messed up thing, because it's very much a case of, like, people project what they want to see into, like, if they're looking for racism, they're going to find racism.
Yeah.
Right. In Lord of the Rings, in Lord of the Rings and, like, Silmarillion, the orcs originated because a godlike character called Melkor corrupted and mutilated elves until they became an entirely different species. If that's what you think Black people are,
so it says more about the person making the link than about the original work. Actually, would you mind indulging me, because I have a Tolkien quote in front of me about allegories. You probably know it. It's regarding the Fellowship of the Ring. I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done since I grew old and wary enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or feigned, with its varied applicability to thoughts and experience of the reader. I think that many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides with freedom of the reader and the other in the purpose of the author. So already you're up a creek with Tolkien, like, now obviously like authorial intent is different from interpretation, but like it's Tolkien would not be happy with Lord of the Rings being turned into Game of Thrones.
Well, you see, like, I don't even know if that's necessarily what's happened. I mean, we've only got teaser trailers to go off of, so we can't. There's only so far we can speculate.
If you're putting political ideas into it, then that's the most marketable thing that exists currently. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, he wouldn't be happy with that occurring. But I think it's also just, I think that, like, you know, if you're trying to twist his words to mean something that they're not going to, it's not something like, I mean, like Lord of the Rings, like his books are like, there's points in them that are very allegorical, and there's bits in it that are very much like him taking reference from either from classic literature like Beowulf, or just from like experiences in his own life. Like he, you know, anyone who's seen the Lord of the Rings movies at the very least probably remembers the sequence where Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are going through the Dead Marshes, knowing that Tolkien fought in World War One. It doesn't take a huge leap of logic to go, well, that's probably where he got
But
inspiration.
that may not have been his intent.
May not have been his intent, but it's, I mean, it's not a massive leap to make. You know, again, like, this guy was also very into, was very much against having everything getting industrialized, and that there's a beauty in nature having a place. And that's a very common theme in this book. And again, it's a theme. It's not necessarily...
Because that's where Saruman and the trees and all that kind of stuff comes in.
Exactly. And so, like, I mean, a lot of stuff like that is said as well about Sauron in the books as well. And, you know, again, it's not that, like, you know, I mean, some people would like to go, oh, that is an allegory. And it's like, I mean, it's a theme. I don't think there's enough of it to say it's allegory. You know, that usually, it's not like I would say, like, A Song of Ice and Fire is way more of an allegory for climate change, because, I mean, read the damn books. It beats you over the head with how allegorical it is, you know. But it's, you know, and again, like, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with being an allegory. It's more just that, like, if you're doing that for Lord of the Rings, you're heavily missing the point. It's the way that people would kind of equate the One Ring with being like a nuclear weapon, and it's like, it's not really, like, that's not really what the One Ring is.
I mean, I suppose, like, if the show did want to do something like that, as long as they made a reasonable case for it, that'd be something. But like, don't pretend it's what the story always was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're going to make that much of a difference from what the source material is, just write a different fantasy series. Like, I mean, it's not, you know, like, it's not like it's out of the question that people wouldn't enjoy it. Like, you know, I think it's just, you know, I just find it very, like, wearisome to just go, oh, let's just use an established IP. And it's like, yeah, but if you want to do something where there is modern politics in it, geez, I mean, there's so many books you could pick. I mean, it's actually hard to even know where to start. Like,
well, like, The Expanse didn't become popular because it took, I'm assuming because you're the fan, it took the series and plugged it into a format that didn't work for it, or to support ideas it wasn't originally about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, you know, I get with that one as well. Like, the writers for the books were very involved in the show. Okay. So kind of like with George R. R. Martin and Game of Thrones. So it during the show's run, it never really veers from their vision too much. But I mean, everything that's there is in the books, and in some cases expanded from what's in the books, you know? And but like it's like, you know, it's like if someone decided to do an adaptation of Sense and Sensibility and then went, actually, there's a really entertaining piece from Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, so let's put that in as well.
Right.
And you're like, but they're not the same though.
Yeah, I get you. Like kind of curving the original source material
around something more modern.
Something modern rather than kind of finding something modern in the source material. A bit like the Little Women film that came out last year. That was fantastic. Like, you know, we talked about it on the show. Like, you know, it's faithful, but it just finds new dimensions to it.
Yeah, but it finds a new way to tell the story, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's still very much the story of Little Women, just told differently. And, you know, in that case, I mean, how many times has Little Women been adapted?
Yeah.
I mean,
like
it's the same thing as, like, you know, when people talk about like changing race for characters, like, you know, I've always been very in favor of someone like Idris Elba getting to play James Bond. And it's like, and, you know, it's like, yeah, because Idris Elba is a fantastic actor, and how many guys have gotten to play James Bond at this stage?
Of course. And like, you know, the theater world has been ahead on this for like a decade or two. Yeah. Like, you know, if you change it up or rearrange it, swap a gender, swap
like, I mean, like
backgrounds,
like Patrick Stewart played Othello.
Over it. Like, you know, they'll probably like it really, really enjoy it. It's not like, you know, a taboo thing.
But, you know, I mean, like one of the most interesting things I heard before was that Patrick Stewart played Othello and all the other characters played by Black people. And that's really interesting. You know? Because, like, you know, yeah, like, I think when there was the production of Othello done, where Patrick Stewart played Othello, and then had black actors instead. I thought that was really, really interesting idea, because, you know, you're basically inverting the entire cast of what Shakespeare intended, and that kind of creates a whole new dynamic and feel to that story. You know,
oh, completely. But like, kind of, that's a very deliberate thing. The kind of the end goal would be to just have like anyone play any character and have it not be some big showy big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, I mean, I think when you see these kind of things, like, I mean, I think there's so much of these kind of discussions happening now because, you know, I think there are a lot of people who really do want to explore it, but it's like, you know, I mean, I think there's a time and a place for that kind of exploration. And I think that trying to do it when audiences aren't ready for it is where you get a lot of these kind of problems. Like, you know, I'm not convinced that just changing who 007 is to a woman is going to make people want to watch a movie about it. But I think if you just changed it so that it was a black actor like Idris Elba or someone else, I think that there would be enough palatability for that it wouldn't seem like such a change, because you're still saying ostensibly it's an Englishman's power fantasy.
Oh, but it goes back to what you said earlier about kind of Star Trek and kind of, you know, the optimism. If you make a good enough case for it and are passionate about it, it will translate.
Yeah,
if it's done cynically, then that will translate too.
Yeah, I think, you know, again, like, I mean, in a Star Trek context, if you tell a story about setting up a scenario where these characters are in a really dire situation, and then you get back to that optimism as being the end point, that's a story worth telling.
Yeah.
You know, especially in this day and age. I mean, we really could do it with a bit more going, well, here's the light in the darkness.
Yeah, I'd like to be happy. Wouldn't you like to be happy?
Not even just like happy, but just, you know, like, if, you know, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, one of my concerns with like the new Batman movie is that, like, when they progress from it, if it doesn't stay in if it just stays in this moody, dark place and you don't see the character start to make efforts to escape it, then what's the point in watching it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that hopeful note, we're actually a few minutes over time. We are going to wrap, but I'm thrilled that we got to do another installment of our two tired dads talking about films they have to watch because of their children. So before we wrap, is there anything you would like to plug, Bryn?
Heaven, no. Oh. I'm in the process of quitting all of social media, so no.
All right, fair enough. We didn't really get into the weeds with Picard, unfortunately, but if you want to see my thoughts on it, I am currently reviewing it for Geek Ireland. You can find all of the articles there. We'll be back, hopefully, with our Morbius review next week. But until then, we've been the Nerd to Know Basis crew. We'll see you next week, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Alright, so you're listening to the podcast, you're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland, how do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter, Nerd to Know Media Instagram, Nerd to Know Media on Twitch, Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon.
Hey, Dara, what are you doing over there in Ireland? Like with the freaking leprechauns and everything. That's not cool. You should be over here with the cosplayers. At least then you could, like, I don't know, pretend like you got, I don't know, some kind of thing going on. Yeah, with you give me a Brooklyn raise. Yeah, with you. Dara? Yeah, Dara. Why ain't you over here with Joey? Anyway, we missed you, dude. So, it's Bill Karibo saying...
I love it. All I do is
check out the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM every Tuesday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course, over on nerdtoknowmedia.com, the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.